Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So today we're doing the first admin live cast, and we're doing it on finding potential partners. So if you have questions, feel free to pop in with them in the comments, and we've got a little rough outline of things we want to talk about. And if you want to know more things, please feel free. So,
do we want to see if people are going to pop in?
There's somebody.
Okay. I guess we'll start at the top.
Oh, there's three people now.
The first thing that we were going to talk about with this was thing where we have this broken down into different subtopics. So the first subtopic that we have is things to talk or think about when in an established relationship and you're approaching single people. So you're already in a couple, you're already in a triad, a quad, whatever, and you want to approach a single person. So why don't you pick up on this additive versus escape thing, James?
Okay. So when you're in a couple and you're looking to add a single person to your dynamic in some form, one, are you looking to add a relationship that is with both of you? Or are you looking to add a relationship with just one of you? And is this addition of another person, are you seeking someone else to add to your relationship because your relationship is strong and it will add more joy to your life to have more people in it? Or are you seeking to add someone to your relationship because your relationship is kind of just not in a good place and you just want to find someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're seeking it for escape, it's not going to grow anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to talk about styles of poly?
Sure.
No, you.
Okay.
I'm here to look pretty.
So the other thing I feel is that is important to bring up when you're first looking for a potential partner is to talk to that person about their style of poly. Some people do hierarchy relationships. Some people do relationship anarchy. Some people.
I'm solo poly.
Yeah,
so,
some people are solo
like,
poly.
So like, I definitely don't want to nest with anyone. So and people have different expectations.
And I feel like it's important to know those expectations before you get into any kind of relationship with that person. It is also important to know if someone that you are getting involved with is already in a hierarchy, whether that is descriptive or prescriptive, like something that they absolutely intend on having, what the expectations are of that hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if somebody is with someone that they consider their primary, and this was a scenario you brought up, like you're going out on a date with a secondary partner, but something's going on with your primary that night.
Actually the other way around. Like specifically like if, let's say it's date night with your primary partner,
Mm-hmm.
and your secondary is having a really rough time. Does that mean that you absolutely cannot go see the secondary because the primary comes first? Or does it mean that like there are exceptions in situations of need, etc.?
Okay, and to get to Leo's question about the difference between descriptive and prescriptive hierarchy. So descriptive hierarchy is like you have a nesting partner, and this happens with us a little
Mm-hmm.
bit sometimes, even as much as I don't want it to, is I'm with Nate a lot more than I'm with my other partners because we live together.
And we've been together for 5 years.
And we've been together a long time, so sometimes we just end up being closer, and that's more of like descriptive hierarchy. Like I don't actually practice hierarchy. I don't consider Nate my primary.
We used to.
But
that was
yeah.
That's
a whole other topic. That's a whole other
where
topic.
We were the primaries.
Yeah.
Now that's not the case.
But it's more of a like, well, we nest together and we spend a lot of time together. We know each other really well versus I expect this person to come first and be my primary and that to be an understood thing. That's prescriptive hierarchy.
So basically one is more situational and open for adaptation, whereas the other is more definite and rule-based.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions on the additive versus escape or styles of poly before we move on as well, or expectations from other people?
Specifically in the context of established relationship towards approaching single folks.
No.
Okay.
Shall we continue?
Yeah.
So the second topic we wanted to bring up was things to think about when not in an established relationship and approaching coupled folks. So is the single person, are they interested in only one person of the couple? Are they interested in both? Are the people they're interested, is like, if they're only interested in one, is that what is that acceptable in the couples dynamic? Are your poly styles compatible?
Mm-hmm.
Are your needs and expectations compatible? So like, do you not want to ever, like in my case, I never want to nest with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Do they expect that at some point you'll become a triad that shares a house or a V that shares a house? Like, are they okay with situations like that? Or the opposite, do you want to nest? And they would not be okay with that. Things like that.
Having a good idea of what expectations are going in, I think, is like crucial. And also, like, I mean, in my case, I've found that it's easier to have fewer expectations. Hello. But obviously, you're going to have some expectation of like the general, this is what I want from my relationships in my life, and like just figuring out if that's a thing that's compatible with both of you, or whatever the situation may be. And then also what your metamor's expectations are and if they line up with yours. So if your partner has a partner and that person has their own expectations of what might happen in your relationship or of their partner, does that line up with yours? Say maybe your metamor doesn't want to nest with a new person, even eventually. They only want to nest with the person that you're interested in. Then what do you do about that situation? Like, how do you talk that out if you end up actually wanting to live together? That sort of thing, I think, is important to know.
And also talking about what kind of relationship do you want to have with metamors? Do you want to know and be friends with all metamors? Do you want to, just have the option of being friends but not be required to? Do you find, like, I know for me, I'm like, oh, I find this person cool. They find me cool. The people they find cool, probably people I find cool too. I want to wave at them and say hi and maybe make friends. But do they want to know all the other partners? Maybe, maybe not. Will we get along perfectly every time? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
So I'm open. Probably not. I mean, I'm yeah. So like I'm open to getting to know my metamors. Not everyone is, and not everyone will get along perfectly, you know? Because people differ, and yeah. So what are your expectations when it comes to metamor relationships too? So I think those were the main things we had in single folks approaching couples. Does anybody have maybe some other questions on that?
Or comments on that, on when you are single and when you're
A part of a couple.
Part of a couple, yeah. Approaching single folks.
Well, or single folks.
Or when you're single approaching a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess we'll move on to the next part, which is initiating conversations. So
super fun for us awkward people.
So, I mean, I know I have social anxiety. I'm pretty sure that all of us do.
Yeah.
So
in some way.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form. So, like, a question that, a thing that I used to be absolutely terrible with was approaching someone to start a conversation. I mean, I still can be in new situations, but like, so like, I'll tend to, sometimes I just find a convenient time to join into a conversation. So I like go up to a conversation that sounds interesting, and I'm like, oh, wow, I overheard you talking about blah, 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 blah. That's really cool. Can I join in? Or, you're at a table with a bunch of people at a meetup or something, and you're just like, and you hear something you know something about, and you want to join in the conversation, and it seems like a conversation that's not private.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to start a conversation with getting to know a person, with making friends, because first and foremost, unless you're just looking for a hookup, like,
yeah,
which is okay, like, but whatever you're looking for, like, as long if it's any connection beyond 5 minutes, like, it's important to get to know the person and see if there is compatibility before just jumping into, hey, do you want to date me? Or like
Hey,
it's
do
okay.
you want to go to the bathroom with me?
It's okay to say that you find a person attractive, but I would also say the best kind of compliments, speaking as someone who's dealt with catcalls and things like that, the best kind of compliments are generally ones about things I have control over. So like, I control the color of my hair. When I have fun colored hair, I'm like, ooh, that's awesome. Or when someone comments on that, or like an outfit that I pick out that I really like.
Yeah.
If someone's going to just compliment me, say, oh, you look really nice, like, that's nice and all, but if it's something I have control over, it makes me feel even better. So that's a really good form of compliment, because it means that the person did something that you like, rather than just that the way they exist is cool.
Another thing about starting up conversation that kind of recently talked about in like group therapy stuff is that I use to get over social anxiety. I'm an extroverted person, so I know this isn't always going to work for everybody, that it's harder for some people than it is for me, but I generally just try to push past discomfort and go up and do the opposite of what I want to do. That's a thing that we talk about sometimes is leaning into discomfort or doing a thing you really don't want to do. If you're looking at that person, you're like, they seem really cute, they seem really cool, and you're intimidated by it, that is 5 times more reason to go up and just be like, hi. And then it's going to be awkward at first. You're going to be nervous, but you already did it. And then you can start with something as simple as what's up, or how are you, or how is your night going? Are you enjoying whatever event that you're at? Or
start with a compliment.
Yeah, or a compliment.
I noticed your hair was really cool. What did you use to, what dye did you use? Or just like something, and the other thing that I tend to do when I notice like an awkward silence happening is I have a little list of really unusual go-to questions that I have in my phone. And before I go out in a big social situation, I'll generally have a couple of them in mind in case things get like just quiet or I don't know what to say. I can be like, okay, so here's an interesting question. And then pop out a question that hasn't come up in conversation yet. So if it's unusual enough, well, not being like an awkward question, it's something that will get people to think and get people interested and will probably not have already come up, so you can still use it.
Yeah.
Because I tend to like freeze sometimes.
Oh, there we gotta keep scrolling down.
I wasn't scrolling down. We were missing the comments.
So, I'm so sorry.
So the how do you deal with jealousy question is actually something we will be getting to in very soon, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the next ones.
Yep. So that is a very good point and something that we will be talking about.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is like how and when to bring up poly.
That's important for initiating conversation. So generally for me, when I know for a fact, like I'm, romantically or sexually or whatever interested in this person, as long as I perceive the situation as safe, I tell them right away that I'm polyamorous and already in an established relationship so that they know that. In my experience, fortunately, that freaks people out a lot less than you would think it does. But obviously that's going to be an issue for some people. A lot of people are monogamous. So I do think it's something that's important to be upfront about, but figure out if you're safe to do so first.
And I would like I don't necessarily do so immediately. I do so probably like before I ask someone out, I'm going to tell them that I'm poly. But like, I have a conversation with them. I get to know them. I say, hey, you're really cool. Like, I think you're awesome. We've had this blah, 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 conversation. So I think you're really cool. I'd love to ask you out. I did want to let you know I'm poly. I don't know if that's a thing that you're okay with. And if you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. And then like, see what they say.
Yeah.
You will definitely get people who will say, what is poly?
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Especially if you're, relationship anarchist, solo poly, something like that. They're a lot less familiar with those as well.
Yeah.
Or they'll have negative preconceptions about poly, and then you can be like, actually, that's not what it means to me.
But just to give you guys a little bit of optimism, because like I wasn't sure, the person that I have like an untitled LDR with now was not polyamorous, didn't have any kind of experience with that sort of thing, definitely didn't know what relationship anarchy was. And I explained all of that, and I explained what it was to him, and he was like, that's really amazing. I've never heard of that before. I love that philosophy.
Also,
so it can really go well. I'm just saying.
Also, he became friends with Danny and I at the same time before anything happened.
That's true. Yeah.
With them. Because we played a vampire game together.
Yes, common interests are important.
Yes.
Yes. Or things that you want to learn from each other.
Thank goodness for the internet.
Agreed. Hard agree there.
So, oh yes, scroll down.
Oh,
there are
there's
comments. What's an long distance relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Does anybody have any conversations on initiating conversation?
Questions.
Or questions or comments. I don't know what I said. I'm sorry.
You said conversations on conversations.
Embrace
the awkward.
I might be a little nervous.
So any
Not
questions?
Oh, you're welcome.
Scroll.
Keep scrolling.
There's more? Oh,
There's
good.
more.
Oh, geez. Always more.
So, okay. So I think we talked a little bit about this already, but connect on an individual level with a person. I think this also applies in when it comes to, especially when dating as a couple, like if you are part of a couple and you're approaching someone and you're wanting to form like a triad or something like that, remember that this person is wanting to form a relationship with each of you.
Mm-hmm.
So while you may be all in a relationship together, there are 3 relationships there. Actually, technically there's 4.
Yeah.
Because there's the relationship between, let's say it's
Let's hypothetically say we're a triad.
Okay, yes. So there's the relationship between the 2 of us. There's the relationship between the 2 of us. There's the relationship between the 2 of you. And there's the relationship of us as a group.
Yeah.
So like if one person ends up, not wanting to stay in a relationship with another person, does that mean that all of the relationships end? Is that fair? What does it mean in terms of various other situations if you're a triad that nests together? How do you deal with that?
Which is something we have actually dealt
We're
with.
intimate with that.
Yeah, we used to be in a triad and are now in a V, so that is something we have experience with. But yeah, I think it's important to know that person on an individual level, know that you get along with them as an individual before you decide to be in any kind of group relationship with them, or like, oh, maybe this would actually work better as a V.
And don't feel like just because your partner wants to be in a relationship with someone means that you have to as well, because you know, it's okay to have separate partners and recognize that sometimes your needs differ. You don't have to step into something with someone that you're not comfortable with. At the same time, in my personal opinion, in most situations, I don't think that you are individuals too. I don't think that, you know, it should only be if both of you are comfortable being in a relationship together. But again, that's my feel. I don't know that everyone feels that way. I think I am very, very high on the individualism aspect. That's why I'm solo poly. But not everyone is.
And people's positions on that
can change. Yeah.
Can change over and over again.
Yeah.
It's also important to recognize those changes when you're talking to new people too. Is like, well, I used to feel this way about something, but now I feel this way. And also, do we have anything about boundaries on this list? I was going to say discussing your boundaries as they change.
That's going to be a separate
is an important thing.
Yeah, that is definitely.
That's going to be a big discussion.
Yeah.
Yes. So, does anybody else have questions about connecting on an individual level, or stories or something they want to share on that front?
Oh, I love stories.
So, okay. Well, in that case, we want to talk about dealing with rejection, and after that, we'll get to
jealousy.
Michael's question about jealousy. So when I think learning how to deal with rejection is definitely something that is really important. I know.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I know for me, I think the thing that helped me most, both with dealing with rejection and with managing jealousy, was just taking a step back and being like, oh, these people have the right to say no.
Yeah.
And that is an inviolate right. If they don't have the right to say no, how would I feel if I didn't have that right? And putting myself in their shoes and being like, well, what do I do if, so I think it's very, very important to keep in mind that each person is, that each person is an individual, and that just like you, in the sense that their right to say yes or no is just as invalid as your own, and recognizing their emotions and putting yourself in their situation.
I can't actually remember the exact situation, but recently I had some sort of thing where I dealt with rejection. I honestly don't remember what it was. But I do remember that at the time that it happened, I did think back to a time where I had to do the same thing to someone. And it doesn't feel good. Like, to me, it doesn't feel good to reject people or to be rejected, like, because I really care about other people's feelings. And am a very empathetic person. But you have to try to look at it from their perspective, definitely, and be like, okay, well, maybe we're not really compatible because of these issues or whatever. And, really try to understand that and still be okay with yourself and realize, it's going to be okay. Like, I can move on from this and find other people because, and this, a lot of this sort of stuff goes back to self-love, like just knowing I'm worth it. It's going to be okay. I'm going to find somebody, and just like moving on. And I feel like it gets easier every time. Like, every time rejection happens and you move on and then you find someone, it's just so much more rewarding because you were able to do that and move past it. Like, I do think that that's a really important thing.
Yeah, and I think, and it also sparks introspection, which is really important. But also, I think another thing about rejection is that a lot of times it's not personal.
Yeah.
It's just, there's some kind of incompatibility, or they're not looking right now, or they just don't see you that way. And it's not anything that you're doing wrong, or it's not that you are a bad person, or it's not that you've done something horrible, or they secretly hate you. It's just simply that that's not how they view you, or that's not how they view you at this moment. And you shouldn't expect that to change. Like,
it can
at times.
Yeah.
It can stay the same, and it's fine either way. Like, I think that someone saying no, or someone saying, oh, I'm only interested in friendship, is still fucking awesome, because like, being friends with someone is a reward in and of itself.
and
I think
making friends as adults is hard.
Yeah, it
Agreed.
is.
Like, I think that, honestly, my friendships are my strongest relationships most of the time, because they're people that will be with me through anything. And whether or not, like, romantic relationships can be that way too. And I think that good ones are. But there's a lot. I feel like there's more. I depend more on my friends than I have in relationships, because I have a deeper and longer connection with friends, oftentimes, and they've got my back even when we have a bad day. Like, and sometimes partners do too. But I feel like my friendships are just as important or more important than my relationships, and my relationships are nearly always friendships first.
Yeah. And that is a good way to deal with consistent rejection or feeling very lonely, is leaning on friends and having a good supportive friend group. And like, James and I actually used to date.
Yes.
And now we're still friends, and like, it's just so nice. It's so nice to have a person who is just also able to be your friend when things fall through, and to have a strong, like, I've been leaning a lot on my friends lately, and I do feel like it's as important.
And I would also say, sometimes, rejection can be dispiriting. Like, especially like, when I lived in Arizona, it was very transphobic. And so I would get people just purposely misgendering me. I would get people saying, I'm not going to date a trans person, Like, there was not much opportunity to date or have any healthy dating. And so, that can be really fucking hard. And I don't want to minimize that, especially in situations like that, where it's directly related to
who you are.
Like, directly related to bigotry. And I think those are when, those friendships that you have are most integral, because and cultivating friendships where there's potential for things like snuggle buddies or whatever, because like, I know that I get touch starved, and I have friends that are willing to, snuggle with me or something, or let me give them a big hug or lean on their shoulder for a little while when I am just feeling like I need touch and I need some kind of intimacy, so I stop feeling alone. And I think that, trying to find if that's something that you also deal with, finding friends who also value touch can be very helpful and very healing. Do you have anything else to say on rejection,
Well,
you guys?
I was going to say, related to what you just said about being related or being rejected for bigotry reasons. I've definitely had lesbian women who would not date me because I am bisexual. That is a huge infighting sort of thing that happens in the lesbian and women loving women community, by the way, if you didn't know. But I think it's important to find other people who are like you. Like, as I started befriending more bisexual and pansexual women and like knowing other people who were bi and dealt with that sort of thing, that became easier to deal with. It's important to find your community if you're feeling rejected for that sort of thing. Definitely. Like, I think that that's really helpful. Was my only other little thing that I was going to add there.
Yeah. And I'd also say, so it sounds like Janelle's also running.
Yeah.
I'd also say, yeah, so Adam, yeah, I definitely agree. To be honest, a lot of my best friends as well are people who I did used to date and don't anymore. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, a lot of my best friends come from that as well, because that dating allows a kind of intimacy that allows you to connect quickly.
Yeah.
And then if it ends, it doesn't mean that connection is gone.
It just means it changes.
Yes.
Yeah. And ebb and flow is good. We
Mhm.
talked about that the other day. Ebb and flow is good. It's hard to get comfortable with it, but once you do, it's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, does anybody else have questions on dealing with rejection before we move on to jealousy? Okay, so
Segueing into that difficult
there's a
topic
comment.
of jealousy.
yes, so
Yeah.
it's good to hear more stories of that, because I think it's so important.
It is important that happened. Oh, there's more.
There's more. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
So, okay.
Keep scrolling.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I think that is also true. I don't think that, in every case, friendship is more important. Like, I definitely, I do agree with you, Dee. There are situations where I'm only speaking for myself, in that the friends that I've had have been more long-lasting and more consistent sources of support in rough times than necessarily the relationships I've been in. And I tend to view my relationships as friendships also.
Yeah, it's definitely based on us as people.
Yeah, but I definitely understand, in a lot of cases, relationships, especially like romantic relationships, are going to be that intensity thing that person that you are closest to. And I definitely don't mean to negate that.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. And I think that all of us seek that. We all want to find people that we will love forever, like for instance, my best friend Ray, who's also in this chat, like, I consider him my platonic life partner, and there isn't really anyone else that I'm as close to. And I think that is extremely healing.
Yeah.
And so definitely, I definitely agree that partners, I think you're kind of saying the same thing, which is that your partner is also your friend. And I think that's super, super important.
Yeah. I mean, Nate is like pretty much my best friend. I mean, I am pretty close to you. But I mean, also my friend Steph, I've known her since I was like 18, And I definitely get what you're saying about your platonic life partner. I love
have one
her
of those.
I love
You know I
her
have
so
one of those.
much. And like also it's funny because we can stop because she kind of lives in my hometown. She has kids, she gets really busy. If we stop talking for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, we can just start talking again like we never stopped talking. Or we like she'll go on about her current crisis and like I'm right there to help. Like it's pretty great to have friends like that too. And yeah, just also a friend group I feel is important when you really need it, when you're feeling down from being rejected.
I also want to make sure to respond to the second part of your thing, which you're talking about, how do you meet people that are maybe in your age group that will be more comfortable. Can you do the scene more about that? So I do want to say that we will be getting to that topic as well. We have where to meet people as one of our topics.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
We do.
So
we knew that was going to be a huge thing, so we put that last. We expected lots of questions,
and we expected some stragglers
but
coming in towards the end.
Yeah, so we will definitely address that. Okay, so let me read Ray's comment. Yes, that is true. Definitely my friendship with you, Ray, is that, yeah.
Like, I get that too, because I'm closer to my friends than most people I think are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so yeah, like I said,
yeah,
the line between friendship and romantic or any other kind, like the lines between different kinds of relationships, partnerships, friendships, romance,
they're malleable.
They are.
Well, they're not just malleable, they're just very blurry.
They're blurry. Ebb and flow.
I mean, but
as
more
well,
than that, yeah.
And also blurry, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have, a lot of blur. There is a lot of gray. Scroll.
Wibbly wobbly friend lines, yes.
Yes, that is accurate.
Indeed.
And also awesome reference. Okay.
For those of you who aren't nerdy, that was a Doctor Who reference.
Yep. So does anybody have any other questions about jealousy specifically that they
we didn't
even
move on to that
We're
yet?
still on rejection.
Okay,
We
does
haven't
anybody
gotten
have
to
any
jealousy.
questions about rejection?
Or
Sorry.
any more comments?
Any more questions, comments about rejection? Because otherwise we're going to move on to the big one, jealousy.
Okay, so
I do want to premise this with, we're going to give a little short overview and talk to you a little bit about your question, Michael, but this is going to be a whole other video.
Yeah, we're going to do
a whole video on
like
jealousy,
this
because it is a huge thing in the poly community.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we will answer your question the best we can here.
Scroll.
You are welcome, Tara. That was
specific.
specifically for you, by the way.
Okay, so I guess let's delve into the jealousy topic then. I've mentioned one of the things that was most helpful for me already, which was recognizing that people are autonomous and that I don't want to impinge upon their autonomy, just as I don't want them to impinge upon mine. So like when I'm in a relationship with someone, just being like, well, I want them to be happy. I want for them the joy and emotions that I want for myself. And recognizing that they are autonomous people and they don't have to agree, and we can have disagreements, and that they don't necessarily love me any less because they're wanting something else. Like, and it doesn't mean that anything with us is lacking.
Yeah.
It just means that, they find joy in new experiences maybe, or they just scroll. They like social interactions with more people. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
definitely.
my goodness, communication.
Communication. That's the
Yes.
that's the actual thing I was going to bring up next is with jealousy is communication itself
Yes.
is fundamental to reducing jealousy in your relationships. If this is, I'm going to give an example. If Nate isn't meeting one of my needs, Nate is going out on date night with Ursula 3 nights a week.
Yep.
Because he just loves that sea witch. and I'm like, Nate, we haven't even had a coffee date in like a month. Then, I'm feeling jealous because I feel like there's a need there. Like I'm missing out on quality time with him that I feel as though I need. So I need to communicate with him, hey, I'm feeling really like, I'm feeling a little bit lonely. I miss our time together. Can we maybe make more time for us to have date nights? That's just an example. There's all kinds of things in there, but you have to recognize what is it that's missing that I'm feeling like we could be fixing, and then talk about that thing.
And now, if we remove the communication from that scenario entirely,
Oh yeah.
that's where you get jealousy.
Yeah. Because you're just feeling it, and a lot of the time it's really bad if you're like keeping it in and you know that it's happening and you just like are burning up inside, just like, oh, I'm so sad he never spends any time with me anymore. You should probably say that to him. So get that out and communicate it, and then that'll help a lot if you're really being open about it.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
And I would say that like the most important thing in the communication is recognizing that it's something you're feeling. And so, one, what are you feeling? What are the actual roots of this jealousy? And 2, what are you wanting? And then 3, recognize that this is something that you are wanting, and maybe the other person won't want that thing, and that's okay. And maybe them lacking the desire to do that thing is too much for you to deal with, and that's also okay. Or maybe it's something you can find a compromise on. Or maybe they're like, oh, I just didn't know how to bring up that I wanted that too. Or, oh, that's really important to you. Okay, I can do that thing. They may just not recognize it or not know how to communicate it themselves.
And sorry, there are so many comments from y'all. Hold on a second.
You guys are being fantastic.
Thank you.
All of you are being great.
Yeah. But no, Harmony. Sorry, our dog. Sorry.
Okay, all of you are being great except her.
Yeah, she's kind of a brat. But gosh, I almost
Harmony's
lost my
dog.
Yeah,
Harmony is a dog. She's not a person.
Harmony, I lost my train of thought. There was something I was going to segue into that.
So envy versus jealousy, maybe?
No, but I'll pick up on that since I did lose my train of thought. Oh, no, I remember what it was. It was the communication thing. It's also important. Yes, say hello to the adorable corgi. It's important to understand the other person's love language, because you were just saying, oh, you need that thing. I can do that for you. Like a lot of the time, this is an issue for me consistently. Up until recently when I started talking more about it, I will be realizing that like a partner is trying to show me that they love me, and I don't understand that our love languages aren't the same. So they think, oh, I'm showing love to her, but she's not receiving that because that is not her love language. I need people to tell me that they love me and appreciate me. I need the verbal reassurance and like words of affirmation, verbal or written. But like if people aren't saying it and I'm not hearing it, then it doesn't compute. And also like physical touch is huge for me. So if I'm not getting hugs and stuff and I'm not hearing it from them, then I don't feel loved, and everybody's different. So that's a huge thing for reducing jealousy, is making sure, and just like feelings of your relationship being not as loving or feeling inadequate in general, is understanding each other's love languages.
Yes. So, okay. So we have a lot.
We have a lot of
comments, a lot of questions.
Okay, let's get to that for a second.
So, envy versus jealousy. This is one that I know wanted to talk on, and
yeah,
we're planning an episode on.
Yeah,
as
we're
well.
gonna
we are going to do an entire a live cast on just envy versus jealousy. However, a brief definition. Okay, so jealousy is being afraid that something that you have is going to be taken away from you. So like Nate goes out with that Sea Witch Ursula, and I'm terrified that Ursula is going to take him away from me. That's jealousy. So envy is, oh, I really like Ursula too. She's hot. I want to go out with her. And Nate's getting to go out with her. That's envy. So envy is I want that thing that other person has. Jealousy is I'm afraid that person or thing is going to be taken away from me. That's a
pretty great, simple definition.
Yeah.
So, and then I know that Ray's comment was specifically talking about making a safe environment to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that is incredibly important. That is something that I've, in some relationships, have not had available and has made everything come crumbling down, because when an environment isn't safe to say no, then sometimes I don't say no and I mean no. And I just get super uncomfortable. And, you know, so like if every time that I say no, there is a blow up and someone takes it extremely personally, it can be really hard to say no. Because I don't have the stamina for the drama or for the conflict. And so sometimes I'll go along with things that I'm not okay with just because I'm either too afraid or too drained to say no. And well, that is also on me. It is not a healthy behavior to do. It is creating that environment where it is safe to say no is incredibly important, and making sure to give the reassurance from the beginning that, hey, you know, this is what I need. I understand if it's not what you need. And if that's the case, that's okay. We can talk about it. You're allowed to say no. Just and periodically reiterating that no's are allowed and that changes in opinions are allowed, or changes in what someone is seeking, that there is allowed to be ebb and flow, that it doesn't have to be static. Giving someone the freedom to grow and change and disagree is incredibly important.
And as a person who used to struggle very hard with other people saying no to me, and like not just saying no, but just generally feeling rejected, made me feel inadequate, which led to insecurity and things, which led to fights. And it's really important that if you know that you're struggling with that and you have a hard time when people say no to you, reject you, things like that in your relationship, or try to explain to you their needs and you're taking it personally, to take a step back, examine that, examine why you're feeling that way, what it is that you need to not feel that way. It's usually something in yourself. For me, I have struggled for a very long I struggled for a very long time with self-love and self-worth things. And so when people would say something like that to me, I would take it personally, even though it wasn't personal. And I had to lower a lot of my expectations to be able to hear no and understand that is not personal. That is not me. That is the issue. It's just that person needs something and I needed to listen. So, yeah.
So yeah, go ahead and
Scroll back down.
Okay, so there's still a bunch more things we want to address that you guys have brought up. So one of them is, Sarah made a good point, that insecurity is often the root of a lot of problems with jealousy. And instead of allowing your insecurity to dictate your response, examining that insecurity more deeply and coming to the root of what's making you feel insecure, and then addressing that before addressing the other person, and also asking for reassurance that you need, but being willing to accept if they're not comfortable with giving that reassurance.
Yeah.
So giving them room to say no, but also asking for what you do need. And if it's reassurance, it's okay to ask for that.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, hey, I'm feeling really lonely right now. Can you remind me that you care about me?
Yeah.
Can you, and it, you know, maybe at first you're, you know, and can you try and do that like maybe can you try and, especially when you're going on a date, can you just give me some kind of reminder that I'm still important to you? I know that that I am, but at the same time my brain likes to tell me that you don't feel that way, and I don't want to stop you from doing things that bring you joy, but could you give me some reassurance just to remind me that I do matter and help with the brain demons?
And that sort of goes with what I was saying. A lot of why I was feeling the way I was feeling when I was, and I was struggling with it, was insecurity and feeling inadequate and things, and also also goes along with the love languages thing I said because I realized that I need verbal reassurance that that person, you know, cares about me, thinks I'm beautiful, loves me, whatever. Like the more that I hear that, the easier it is for me. So it's something that I try to communicate to people. But yeah, just being able to recognize your insecurities and ask for what you need is really important.
So can we scroll back up a little bit? Okay, so Michael, you brought up, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, it's that, you know, if someone addresses a problem they have, let's say it's the three of us, and Nate has a problem with Danny, and Nate brings it up to me, but not to Danny.
Yeah.
Is that what you are asking? Because I just want to make sure I have the question clear before I go into a long response. So I guess I'll assume that is what you mean. In a situation like that, I think that there's two things. Ray mentioned one of them, which is that that, you know, maybe that person feels safer with the other person, but there's also the factor that, you know, that is a failure of communication, and I think there are ways to address it with the person. I think that, you know, sometimes maybe they'll want their advice on how to, like, how to approach that. Like, let's say, you know, Nate asked me, you know, this is going on with Danny. I know that you've dealt with situations like this. How did you approach it? How did it go? And how can I approach it more effectively? That's one thing. But if the person is just going to rant to another partner who's also a partner with you, I think that can be pretty problematic.
Yeah.
And I
I've
think
had to make that complaint.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that it's something that's definitely worth addressing. But I think there are ways to address it that are healthier than others. Like, let's say that situation happened and Danny wanted to address the fact that, you know, she found out through somebody else that, you know, that Nate had a problem.
Mhm.
Well, then, you know, Danny may go up to Nate and say something like, hey, so it seems like you had a problem with this. Is there a reason you didn't feel comfortable bringing it up with me? Can we talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going to, hey, you know, you should have told me first. Giving them an out, like giving them a way to say, you know, oh, yeah, I wasn't sure how to approach it and I wanted their advice, or giving them a chance to explain in a way that is non-confrontational can really help, especially if the reason they didn't bring it up to you was because, you know, they just didn't feel comfortable or safe doing so. That provides a safe atmosphere and may make them feel more comfortable in the next time that a conflict comes up. And just keeping an eye of how they respond to that, and whether or not they do so, you know, in a healthy way is also important. Because if a person is going to go behind your back a lot and just gossip about you, and when you bring it up politely and try and address it in constructive ways, they don't want to, it may be time to reevaluate your connection. Or it might not. It really depends on the person, but things like that are important to think about.
Yeah, and also, if you're finding that you consistently are having some issues communicating, to find outside sources to communicate with about those issues. That is one of the reasons that we made the group, is to find other polyamorous people to speak to about this sort of thing. Like, and it's, you know, it can be really unhelpful, I think, sometimes to go to other partners about an issue, especially if you're all in the same relationship. Even getting a counselor or a therapist to work with you. I know that it's a little surprising to people, but there are couples and family counselors who will help poly people. We went to one. Her
A lot
name
of the
is
time,
Julia,
you'll
but
have to
yeah,
explain to them everything.
but
They won't know.
well, to an
Some
extent,
do.
some
but-
do.
Some do, but
But
it will be rare.
either way, like sometimes having some sort of outside source to talk about those things with is really helpful and important.
Yeah, just having a neutral third party can really make a huge difference, because sometimes, you know, there are too many emotions invested between the people to be able to have a calm perspective.
Yeah.
Or a unbiased perspective on a situation, because, you know, they may have heard about the situation from the other partner and have all those emotions, and then they're hearing about it from you and they've already got a preconceived notion, or, you know, just being able to have a neutral third party that isn't as invested in the relationship and doesn't come at it from fear or upset or preconceived notions or all of that can really, really be helpful. Like, I honestly think when it comes to therapy and things like that, please, everybody, literally, it's the best thing. It's like someone literally just, you hire someone to just sit there and listen to you and give you advice. Like it's my favorite.
Therapy definitely completely changed my life. It's definitely helpful.
Like, I mean, even from a perspective, even for people who aren't as obsessed with, I must grow and be introspective at every second, and must have new experiences. And
I might be like that too, yeah.
Like, I might be becoming more like that now.
But like, you know, even people who aren't that way, it's just wonderful to have someone to talk out stress with.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. So anyway, that's off topic somewhat though.
Yeah, and we're breaching an hour and we still have a lot to cover.
It's okay. So did that cover everybody's questions before I move on to
believe so.
Okay. Along with the jealousy thing, one thing that helped me like incredibly a whole lot in reducing both my jealousy and my envy levels was not expecting things from people, especially having unrealistic expectations. A lot of the time it can be really easy to not even realize that you have them, and to have that thing where you're like, why aren't they doing this thing? Well, because maybe they can't, or they don't want to, or they themselves need, you know, like therapy and stuff. And trying to lower that expectation, especially to meet the needs of that person that you're expecting things from, can be a huge thing in lowering jealousy and envy. Yeah,
or even like I wouldn't necessarily call it lowering expectations, but making expectations that meet the relationship.
Yeah.
And also talking about expectations. So like, you know, when you have a situation where you're like, why is this person not doing this thing? Everyone should do this thing when they're in a relationship. Being like, okay, so this is really upsetting me. What is upsetting me about it? What are they not doing that I want them to do?
Yeah.
And okay, can we talk about that? And you know, what will I do if they say no? Can we, and what reasons might they have for saying no? Let's talk about those reasons, and let's see if, you know, one of those reasons may be a deeper reason why I have a problem with it. Like someone isn't, you know, showing affection in a certain way, and I'm afraid that means they don't actually care about me. So, you know, I talk to them about it, and they're like, oh, I just am not accustomed to doing that
Yeah.
thing. If you want me to, I can, or maybe they can't for some reason, or they're just not comfortable with that thing. But like
Mhm.
understanding that it doesn't mean that they don't care, and that I'm talking about other ways they can show that can be really helpful too with dealing with that.
Yeah.
So coming up with alternate solutions for
Yeah.
that can meet both of your needs is also important.
And being adaptable to the needs of other people. Like when I still am friends with and in relationships with people who are on the spectrum. But when I was very young, I was 17, I was in a relationship with someone who is, and I didn't recognize that, like, for him, physical touch was a very limited thing. And like just sort of understanding that sort of thing, like, oh, my partner really can't do that thing or needs to do and express things in a different way, and communicating with them about it can be really important as well. Because sometimes you're like, oh, my expectation is this, and that seems realistic to me because I'm so accustomed to things going one way. Like, oh, when people are affectionate with me, that means they want to kiss me and stuff. And also, I guess, examining whether that's something you can handle or not. Like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
because compatibility is a thing.
Yeah.
You don't you don't have to, if your expectations don't meet in a way that you cannot deal with, that's okay. It's okay for things to end or change or shift. It may hurt, it may be hard, but you are not obligated to stay in a situation that makes you miserable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yes, Michael, I definitely, dealing with denial and dealing with rejection is definitely something that is hard for, I would think, everybody.
Oh yeah. I was in denial of my issues and my actual entire diagnosis for a very long time because I didn't want to be like my mom. So yeah, I would say that denial is a thing that a lot of people definitely deal with.
And
Oh,
dealing with
absolutely.
rejection is a thing that is very difficult for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it's something that, it hurts because a lot of times it feels personal, whether or not it is personal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is personal, and that really sucks. And sometimes it's not personal, and that also really sucks. But it's definitely something that is, I guess conversation is just really and being willing to accept that no, even if it hurts,
Yeah.
and leaning into that discomfort, like Danny mentioned. Being willing to accept that sometimes things do hurt, and you can
Yeah.
grow from that hurt.
Accepting your feelings can be really hard for people. Sometimes things are sad and painful, and being able to deal with that and in healthy ways is important, I think, for people to learn. I think that makes a lot of life easier. It's a thing that I'm constantly working on right now, and the more that I am able to handle sadness, the more I find, positive emotions.
Yeah, and I would also say, well, okay, two things. One, selective numbing unfortunately doesn't work.
No.
No.
And two, I would so like, but also I would say that, oh crap, I forgot what I was gonna say.
It's okay.
That never happens to me.
So, oh god, it's gonna come back right as we switch topics, I'm sure. So,
On that note, let's switch topics.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask if anybody else has questions about jealousy. Do remember, we are definitely going to do a whole live cast on just that. But if you really,
If you have any burning questions.
yeah, need anything right now, especially with the current discussion.
All right.
okay. So the next point, I feel like we've covered a lot of it right now.
Yeah, we have.
So know what you seek. Like, do the introspection work before you go on a date. Make sure that you are aware of what your expectations are. What and like what are you seeking, and does like are you seeking like are you seeking a nesting partner? Are you seeking a blah blah blah? Is this
Yeah.
something that person wants?
Yeah.
And being willing to recognize that, oh, it's not. Okay, well then maybe we're not compatible. Even if there's a lot of chemistry, maybe something that is more committed is not something that would be healthy. Or maybe I could be okay with, not being in a nesting partnership. If the person meets other needs that are important to me, and am I going to be able to meet the needs that are important to them as well?
Yeah.
Like
I feel people are a little more familiar with that when it comes to expectations, especially societal ones with like monogamy and heteronormative relationships. Like, oh, I want a partner that wants a kid because I want to have a kid and my partner doesn't want to. Is that person worth staying with to me if long term they never want children and I do? And for a lot of people that answer will be, well, no, because I want to have a family. And I mean, like, it can be something that simple versus like someone who wouldn't be okay with, not living with you, James, even though you're a solo poly person, just knowing those things going in.
Yeah, and being willing to discuss things and being willing to accept that those things may change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable.
And honestly good. Yeah, so
now you're gonna, if nobody has any
questions on
questions on
figuring out what you're looking for,
yeah,
then at that point I think we're going to talk about where to meet people,
which is a
that's
huge
what everyone
thing. Everyone
wants.
wants to hear about this. Yeah.
So I mean, dating sites and apps are kind of my go-to.
Yeah.
But like specifically OkCupid, I feel like there's a lot of poly folks on there, and you can specify that you're poly and only search for poly folks, even if you're not a paid member.
Yeah.
OkCupid has changed significantly just in the
they have
last 5 years since I met Danny on it.
Yeah, they've changed a lot. They also allow specification of non-binary genders, which is freaking awesome.
Do that.
They
which
do.
Is great.
They also allow you to not see straight people if that's the thing you don't want.
Like, no, only show me the queers.
Yeah,
just them.
So, but I mean, it allows you to search by people who may have had similar life experiences in that sense. But yeah, so that is a thing. I think OkCupid is probably the best of the dating sites.
I feel like it is for non-monogamous people.
Not just for that
I
reason,
think it's the best overall.
Yeah,
agreed.
I
think it is because it allows you to message for free, and a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
It's more fully featured.
eHarmony's a scam.
Match.com is a scam.
Match.com is also a scam.
Plenty of Fish does not have
Plenty of Fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, if you're going for online dating site, I would say OkCupid is usually the best when it comes to poly dating and just dating in general. If you're looking for but I think that common interest things are also very helpful. So like meetup groups, like, oh, we both like board games. Let's go to a board game meetup.
Yeah.
I've done this. And then, oh, cool. This person's really cool. I'm not going here to meet people, but I'm going here to, I'm going here to meet people with similar interests. I'm not necessarily going here being like, date me.
Yeah.
But like meeting up with people with similar interests can spark things too.
Go on.
Viewers, this is a complete side note on this conversation, but after this live video is over, you reminded me that I'm gonna have to post the music video to Polyamorous by Chris Fleming.
Oh yes, I
I
love
haven't
that
seen
video.
this, so now
You
I
haven't
know.
seen that?
Okay.
It's really funny.
So I'm gonna
But-
try this. Okay.
But sorry, circling back to dating sites and apps, I did want to say that I, as a bisexual woman, have not found any really good ones for dating other women. If anybody has any advice on that, I know like Grindr is there for gay guys, and I've heard mixed things about that and other sites and apps. But
I've Bumble.
I tried Bumble, and
I've heard bad things about
yeah, I
Bumble.
also didn't find hardly anyone around here, and I know there's actually a huge LGBT community in Harrisburg. I'm friends with like half of them, so like I'm just saying, like if you have anything that you're like, oh yeah, I really liked this app and I thought it was really great, especially for like, you know, queer people and stuff, please like put that in the comments, because I haven't really had very much success finding that. OKC is a really good one also, though, for people who are of different sexual orientations, I found. Like, so I definitely recommend that one overall.
Mhm.
Yeah, and in the note of Michael's thing about introversion and meeting people, that is a very valid thing. As that is honestly why I like online dating more, is because it allows me to think through what I say first. And generally my go-to when I'm talking to someone online is
Yep, same.
yeah. So generally my go-to when I'm talking to someone online and sending a first message, one, I'll just send the message. Like, I won't wait for someone to send it to me. Two, I will I'll say, hey, you know, blah 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 blah, I think you know, this thing about your profile seemed really cool, and do you want to talk about this? And then I'll also have like some other questions, like, you know, have you learned anything interesting today? Or, you know, and I'll have like 2 or 3 questions, and, you know, how was your day? Have you learned, like, the blah 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 question about thing on their profile, and, you know, like some random question, and see what they say. And if they respond and you can start a conversation, now you've got topics for the conversation too.
Speaking of what Sarah just said, we should talk about tomorrow.
Well, yeah,
we should
but
finish
But
this
we
first.
should
Yeah.
finish this first.
Yes.
But to address her question.
well, the next thing was going to be Facebook groups anyway.
Mhm.
And obviously we have our group.
Our group.
And we are having a meet and greet tomorrow night
are.
at JB Love Drafts. And I would say that, you know, coming to the meetups and the potlucks for the group are a great way to meet people, and possibly people that you're interested in romantically. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also just friends, other poly people, having a community. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think that brings us to choosing your contacts. So, like, for some groups, they are specifically focused around personals. They're focused around, you know, hey, I'm looking to date people. Do you share interests with me? Or would you like to get talking and see if that's a thing that might happen? There are, in other communities like ours, for instance, we prioritize creating friendships first and getting to know the person, and then, you know, then initiating something like that once there's an established relationship and connection. And being aware of community norms, and, you know, reading the rules of the community, and just thinking about those things, and maybe lurking in the community before deciding what to post for a week or so, and seeing
Yeah.
what sort of things come up and what sort of questions seem like they're what the focus of the group seems to be. Like, I'm in a solo poly group that is very, very heavily discussion based. If it does not have to do with solo poly, then it can't be brought up. If it does not have to, if it's a question that's been asked, even if it's buried in the mists, they want you to reignite a conversation rather than, you know, start a new one on the same topic. So like learning those rules and norms for a community can really help with approaching connection in a way that will resonate with the people in the community.
And there are Facebook groups that are specifically for personals. Like I'm a member of a group, I think that's just called Poly Personals, and like there are other groups like that. We were briefly discussing, we used to do a thing where we had a thread for personals I think it was once a week.
It was supposed to be every Friday. But
we don't need to do it that often. I don't think our turnover rate is that high, but I do think it would be a good thing for us to bring back every so often, like maybe once every a month or once every 2 weeks, have people put personals up for people who do want other people to message them if they're interested in the same things. I do also, we were considering doing some, the overall idea of the group is to expand probably a lot.
Quite a bit.
And there will be subgroups that we're thinking of doing. Like we were thinking about doing a kink related group and some other stuff, and maybe some stuff that is a little more romance or personals based. I'm not really sure yet, but like we do definitely want to create the space for people to meet. And also like you were just saying, there are definitely other groups, if you get to know their guidelines and stuff on Facebook, that you can use for that sort of thing too.
Yeah. And in response to, do you want to say something first?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the funny thing about going to JB Love Drafts is actually, I think like the majority of
the majority of us don't drink, yes.
No, I think the whole admin team, except for me and Danny, a little, don't drink at all.
Yeah. Well, I have a drink about once a year.
And a lot of us don't drink beer either. I mean, I like beer, but I totally get not liking beer. So.
See, I like to drink. I'm just bad at it. I'll try to drink, and then I'll just slowly stop.
I mean, I know that it's a micro pub.
Tipsy.
I know it's a micro pub and beer is their thing, but you don't have to be into beer to come.
No, they have.
It's also really nerdy
mixed
and fun.
drinks. They have a lot.
They have a lot of different themed mixed drinks and fun.
And
food
we'll
is
be
really
there
good.
to talk to and wave at you. And I don't know, maybe we'll bring board games.
There's
for
video
awkward-
They
games
have
there.
stuff
Oh,
there.
they have video games.
There's
too.
video games at every table. That's
nice.
Yeah.
Every table has a console.
It's a really nerdy place.
It is a really nerdy place. It is great.
Poly dinosaurs.
We could do a Poly Dinosaurs group.
A kink-based group. We were thinking about doing that.
We are
for
definitely
sure.
thinking about doing
especially
a
because I
subgroup.
really want to do a kink event in February, and I wasn't sure how to do that in the context of the group. I thought it might be easier to just have a subgroup.
Yeah, so that people who are comfortable with that.
Sarah, I've been to JB Love Drafts with Sarah twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah. I totally get that.
Being a little broke or a lot broke.
Yeah. No,
Hi.
I understand.
Yeah.
We're
yeah,
all millennials.
Well, not all of us, but yeah. That's a relatable statement.
You're not a millennial?
Oh,
No,
no.
I am,
He
but
was
not
saying
everyone
not
in the
everybody
group.
is.
I was gonna say I meant all of us.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're millennials. We have no money. It's how it works.
We're doing our best.
We are doing our best.
Okay, so does anybody else have any questions that we did not address about finding?
Yeah, is there
Any
anything we
closing
didn't
questions?
go over or you wanted to ask about finding potential partners?
Scroll.
Oh, hey, there are. Okay, so no questions. not yet. Just more comments.
Scrolling.
Oh, there's more. Oh, geez.
Oh, there's Julia. Hello, Julia.
Hi, Julia.
The whole
Oh,
people
well, I mean,
stuff.
Hey,
I
I'm a
like
bookworm.
books and outdoors.
I spend more time in books than I do in anything else. It's a problem, especially when I was a kid. Like there was literally, I think they kept me alive. Okay, more than think, but anyway.
I can relate.
I do want to start uploading videos as well to YouTube. I thought about uploading these videos to YouTube, but I remembered that I was going to read the questions out loud for context, but anyway.
Well, we can always add comments to the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For clarity.
But we probably will also upload these videos to YouTube for more access, and we're considering just doing a podcast, but we like this setup because you can ask us while the video is happening, and I do think that this went pretty well for our first live video, so thank all of you for coming and doing this with us.
It was a learning experience. Hopefully they will progressively get better and better.
Yeah.
And thank you again, and let me do the wave out.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yay, we did the thing.
Hit end.
I tried.
You did your